about the Native Americans, and in this episode we are going to talk about British India, and we're going to talk about who this flag is owned to. It's not one of the countries in the world though. Well, let's get started. My name is Shun, and why don't we start by looking at some notes. Pow! My notes, let's get started on our topic. But as always, let's get started with the question from the book a little bit. Well, let's get started. What are the most important natural resources in the world? Put your answers in the comments below or just email me at my email. I'll put the link in right here. Alright, let's get started. But before we know what this flag and what is BEIC, Google it, or if you're Korean, just name for it. We need to know about the Mughal Empire. I know. I might know what you're thinking. That the Mughal Empire was actually the Mongol Empire. Just a minute, I'll write it down for. But however, you're not wrong actually. Let me write this down and I'll explain it. Alright. The Mughal Empire is actually, in meaning, the Mongol empires. So you might be wrong. You're not wrong if you just thought that it was the Mughal Empire. That's what that meant. Well, this guy was not. The Mongol Empire was made by Genghis Khan, and this Mughal Empire was made by a guy who thought he was a descendant from Genghis Khan, which was a Mongol, Babur. Babur was a guy who thought that he was a descendant from the Mongols, as I said earlier, and he was the guy who made the Mughal Empire. And well, and literally he named it. He named it himself, and well, his descendants will later control the Mughal Empire. One of his descendants, his grandson, was a man named Akbar. See the similarities between them? Oh, wait a minute. Akbar. Right. This was his grandson. They're related, alright. And the weird thing about the Mughal Empire is that, one, the rulers, such as Babur and Akbar, were Muslims. While the people of the empire, Indians, no, I'm not relating to the American Indians. Now we're gonna go talk about India now. The Indians, the native people of India, were Hindus. If you recall from our Indus Valley Civilization video, probably in our season 1 video, you might know them changed to Hinduism later after they got Buddhism. Now they're Hindus. This is so rough. Alright, Hinduism was kind of the basic religion of the Indians, but since the ruler Muslims, tolerated other cultures, they allowed Hinduism, and probably they would allow Christianity, but that's for another story. Well, these Hindus, so they coexisted peacefully, and their religions, such as in different cultures and traditions, merged together. But they didn't make another religion. So, sadly. Well, there was some, but before they had got some problems, in the 1600s, the Mughal Empire was at its highest peak. Well, that's got a lot of strength. And also, but in the middle of the 1700s, there was a lot of prosperity, and well, I have to say it for myself, dumb things. Because, well, the last Mughal Emperor, I have to explain this, the last Mughal Empire did a lot of dumb things that probably even the Indians would have called them. They destroyed Hindu temples, and also everything that was Hindu. The Muslims did not allow the Hindus to be tolerated anymore. I have to say that it is dumb. And this was one of his many mistakes. And the last and probably the most dumbest mistake was letting the English make a trading post in India. Well, I also think that that's a mistake. Most terrible mistake. And right after that ruler's death, there was a lot of things that happened. And well, I'll explain this in the extra history, guys. That this is for another story. Anyways, and as I said, in the middle of the 1700s, they declined. As I said with the last emperor, it helped decline the emperor and, well, empire. And then the few next emperors of the Mughal Empire weren't even emperors of the Mughal Empire, but they just weakened it and weakened it. So until they were gone. But what happened before the middle of the 1700s? Well, if you recall from our videos from Europe, you might know that the European countries were very fabulous and amazed by the products and the trading items of the Indians. You might recall them as tea, silk, cloth, spices, and even some perfumes, and also opium. And these were just some basic one of them. And since there were a lot of the European countries and they had to fight for trade, they wanted to trade for all themselves. Don't be greedy because of that. And well, there were a lot of competitions. I mean, not like literal competitions. Well, not like those boxing competitions, but still there were competitions to get the trade route to India. However, one company, the British East India Company, that's what the British East India Company, let me write that in blue, that's what BEIC stands for. Rose to power. This was one of the strongest companies in India. And well, this happened merely because of colonization, and one of the emperors of the Mughal Empire, weak Mughal Empire, captured a lot of British fortress builders, and well, the British East India Company, boom, was born. This is complicated. I'll explain it later. And what happened during the British East India Company? Well, now that the British East India Company had full control, literal full control of trade of silk, opium, tea, cloth, and spices, to be the list. They now had full control of India, which is including modern-day India and modern-day Pakistan. Pakistan didn't exist back then; it was part of India. And the British East India Company called it like that because they first controlled the eastern part of the territory, this part, and then they later controlled the western part. That's for another story. So that story will be fully closed until next time, or this video will never end. Anyways, this British East India Company had a lot of things with the Indians. Well, they were kind of ruled like the Mughal Empire, except that they were not Muslims. And well, there was still a lot of rebellions with the Indians. Well, one of the rebellions was called the Indian Mutiny. We'll get into that in a second. The British East India Company owned Indian soldiers. They were Muslim and Hindus, and those soldiers were called sepoys. This is important, so I'm going to write it down. Sepoys. And well, some were Muslims and some were Hindus. And there was a rebellion. Well, how did that rebellion started? Well, that rebellion started because the sepoys thought that their equipment was oiled with cow fat, and B, their equipment was also oiled with pig fat. Well, why is this so a big deal? It's not like a big deal for us today, unless you're Indian, but for the Muslims, they were forbidden to touch pork, which is meat from pigs, and B, Hindus view cows as sacred. Google it or neighbor it. And if they did use their equipment that would be same as going against the religion, and they might be kicked out of Muslims and Hindus. And this rebellion started. And what did I call it? And the beginning, when I just talked about the British East India Company, it's called the Indian Mutiny. Write it down. Side a bit. Indian Mutiny. Well, this mutiny and rebellion only lasted from 1857 to 1858. So don't get surprised because it's just 1 year. Most rebellions are like that. Unlike the French Revolution, if you're still watching that. And this 1857 to 1858 rebellion was a disaster. The sepoys who was responsible for the Indian Mutiny, wanted to restore the Mughal Empire. Well, they failed anyways, but they were able to capture the capital city of the Mughal Empire. And speaking back to the Mughal Empire, because they captured the Delhi, the capital city of the Mughal Empire, because it was where the emperors of the Mughal Empire lived in luxury. Well, I wish I was in luxury. And let's get back up. And they failed because the British East India Company captured all of their conquered territories. It's the inside of this red line, dotted red line in here, and it includes Delhi, which is right here if you're wondering. Well, this was a major disaster for the Indian Mutiny too, because after the British East India Company conquered all of the conquered territories of the Indian Mutiny, it ended and the sepoys were probably fired, but we're not so sure of that. Back to our British East India Company. And now, British East India Company had full, real power of trade. And now the government, such as Parliament and a queen called Queen Victoria, here I'll write her name. Queen Victoria ruled the British East India Company and whole of India. If you're still wondering what this flag is, it's the British East India Company's flag. Well, that goes with our British East India Company flag. But what happened during the British East India Company when they got full power of the Indies? Well, mainly they did a lot of bad stuff, such as selling items, buying items from India at a bit of a cheap price for them, and then selling them back to India at higher prices. This was unfair, really unfair. Another thing is that they treated the Indians, mainly Hindus and Muslims, poorly, unfairly. So if you're an Indian, I have to say that I will go against the British. Sorry, British. And they did get some advantages and gave more power to the Indies, though. Well, some of them were giving modern hygiene and modern hospitals. What is hygiene? Well, hygiene is the hygiene. Well, if you just want to know it, just Google it or neighbor it. But if you still want to know it right here, I'll tell it. Hygiene is the practice of keeping the body clean and healthy. Well, I eat a lot of meat. And, that was kind of one of the advantages for India from the British. And also, they did make a lot of railways. And, you can still see some British influence in India. Like, the Indians now play a popular English sport called cricket. Whoa! I never trained to play cricket before. There were some Indian roads are built by the British, and C, one of the official languages of India is not just Indian language, but the British language, if they do have Indian language. But still, the Indians still do a lot of stuff. And some books are written by British people who were born in India, such as Rudyard Kipling. Now here, Rudyard Kipling. And he wrote the probably famous Jungle Book. Jungle Book. Alright. And these things that the British did for the Indies helped start the Industrial Revolution, which we'll cover up in our next unit. And until then, I'll see you next time. Shinhan out! FTFF. It's writing time already? Alright. What did you learn about the British colonization of India, and what are the most important natural resources in the world? Put your answers in the comments below or just email me at my email. Let's get started. First question, what did you learn about the British colonization of India? Well, I learned that the British colonization of India was it was very hard because look at the size of the country. And B, there was a lot of humans there, and there were multiple races, and well, there were also a lot of people there. And also they were hard to control the Mughal Empire. Well, it was weak, so it was a bit easier than controlling the stronger one at the 1600s. So, well, and also when they got full control of trade from India and the full control of India itself, which includes modern-day Pakistan, they called it their most important colony. And do you know what they named it? Well, you might be surprised because they named it the Jewel and the British Crown. Let me explain. Why did they call it the Jewel and the British Crown? Well, one reason. The British had a lot of colonies, including all of Australia and India, and they called India the Jewel in the British Crown because it was their most important colony, and that's where they got a lot of their resources, and it was their most favorite colony, I have to say for myself, and it was their most important trading post for all European countries as well. And well, you might find out about it. And another thing that I learned about the British colonization is that the British East India Company started after they colonized India. There was a lot of things happening, and well, they got some problems with the Indian Mutiny, and also rebellion, and also they did a lot of good things to the Indians, but they also did some bad things, such as buying stuff from India and selling back at higher prices. Although they did give hygiene to them. And some of the books are English, but those authors are born in India, such as the Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. And there were some rulers, and they also had some soldiers such as sepoys to protect their colony, and that's how they got control of India. Alright, moving on to next question. Next question is, what are the most important natural resources in the world? Well, I have to say that it's wood, fiber, leather, diamonds, some precious metals, and most importantly, your mom and dad. Well, I have to say that some of the other natural resources are very rare, so they aren't very often seen. And food and water is very important too. That's the most important one instead of the other things that I just mentioned. Well, that wraps up my answers and for these questions of our today's writing. Put your answers in the comments below or just email me at my email. I'll see you in my extra history. Shinhan out. Pow! Kaboom! Alright, today we're gonna talk about our extra history. Dan. Little dancing. And today we're gonna talk about the British East India Company, or for short, BEIC. This flag here. So, let's get started. When did the British East India Company start? Well, the British East India Company started when the Mughal Empire, the descendants of the last Mughal emperor, got captured some British people who were building forts. And why did he do that? Well, because he was afraid that he would be overthrown, and he put them in a very small cell. It contained 100 people, and a lot of them died because of suffocation. There was no room to sit. Ow, ow, ow. That was very uncomfortable. So the British East Indian Company conquered the Mughal Empire and all of India, which includes Pakistan then. There was no Pakistan back then. And then they made a colony in India. Later, after they ended their colony, it was split into Pakistan and India, but that's for another story. And the British East India Company, after it started, they did a lot of social things to India. Well, why I'm saying social because it said that they did some good things, but it was almost as bad as the bad things they did to the Indians. Let me explain. One, they gave railroads, but they only used one railroad so often that it was so wearing out, so the Indians couldn't use them. Two, they bought Indian products, but then they sold them back at a higher price. That's very unfair, I have to say it. And well, I think this is fair though. They made modern hygiene and modern hospitals, which reduced the amount of killing from viruses and bacteria. Did I say D? No. Oh yeah. They reduced crime in the countryside where the farms are by getting British police there with British police stuff. Rough. And they made new laws to democratize and society the Indian country, if that is a word. It is now. And well, that explains why I just said so, but good. And the British East India Company got control of trade, and they also got control of India by getting control of trade. Well, what did Indians trade for? Well, they traded for, here's a list, opium, silk, leather, cloth, spices, clothes, and some perfumes. There was a lot of things that the Indians controlled and traded for when they when they got controlled by the English, and there was a lot of things happened during the British East Indian Company. Some rebellions started, and some of them were the Indian Mutiny, which lasted only for 1 year, from 1857 to 1858. Well, as I said earlier, the Indian Mutiny. Can you see this? Good. And also the British East India Company helped start a new revolution. Oh wait, that says Revolution Month. Called the Industrial Revolution. We're going to talk about it in our next unit. But what happened before the Industrial Revolution? Well, there was a lot of things. Those things that I said, so stuff, but other things such as books written by English people who were born in India, such as Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book and Just So Stories. That's the title of his other book. And I'll see you in the other videos. And before I go, I need to tell you one thing. The British East India Company was called the British's jewel in the British crown, because let's say that there's a colonies, and each jewel in the crown, it represents each colony. And the most important one, and the main one right here probably, was the India, because it was its most important resource and the resource of their supplies. Yeah, that's true. And well, that covers up our lesson for today, and I'll see you in my next video in the Industrial Revolution. Well, I'll see you then. Shinhan out. Pow! This video was made by me. It was sponsored by me. Your host was me, Han Shun. That's my Korean name, and my English name is Shun Han. These writing of these writing of these and this drawing of these flags with those crayons that I showed you in the beginning, and the whole episode was drawn and written by me. This map drawing was drawn by me. I drew a very detailed one. And there's nothing much in here to say. And let's talk about our people. My editor is my mom, and as I said earlier, my host, your host is me, Han Chen Shen. And with the help of my YouTube channel, Han Chen Shen, I can make videos whenever I want. Oh, and special announcement. At the end of this week and next week and Monday, I'm going to start a new channel. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet, so I'm thinking of speed course or shang course, but until then, I'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell button and like button so you don't miss any of my videos. And change the bell button to all or notifications so you don't miss any of my videos. Any of my videos. And if I do ask a question, please enter them in the comments below or just email me and my email. Finally, I'm gonna tell you my email. It is 20. Can you see this? JUR@neighbor.com. So much sun. And speaking of questions, today's question is, what is the company? What does BEIC stand for? Is it A, the British East Indian Company? Is it B, the Banned English Indian Company? I made that up. And C, the British East Indian Company's products. Well, I'll see you then. Shin Han out.